So with episode 2 of season 2 of Re:Zero, all I can say is that this series definitely hasn't lost its touch. With episode 1, people might want to try to make the argument that people were excited for Re:Zero because it shocked us with the REM. There was a lot of shocking factors, our jaw was on the floor. But with episode 2, they more or less completely slow it down to what a lot of season 1 was known for. The slower moments, the character interactions, the relationships that get formed are completely crushed by resets and you have to try again. But when you have to try again after already building something, your kind of ability to care and just really stay strong, it kind of goes out the window as seen by Subaru's character. So by more or less not having too shocking of moments in this episode, obviously we have the witch agree towards the end of the episode, we have the uncertainty with this whole sanctuary, witch factors, like there is some uncertainty, some shocking elements, but not to the same degree of who's REM. To me, this proves for any naysayers that Re:Zero hasn't lost its touch and it feels like a direct continuation off of season 1. It doesn't feel like something that needed to just end with season 1. It doesn't feel like it's boring or it lost its touch. It literally feels like if you were watching episode 1 of season 1 and got up to episode 2 of season 2, you would feel like they never took a break and the show just continued for this many episodes. And that's a fantastic feeling, I have to say. I actually really like the slower pace and the fact that we didn't kind of like dwell on REM for too long in this episode is still a relevant factor. REM is at a commission, she's in a comatose state, and no one remembers her other than Subaru. It is sad, it is heartbreaking, but I'm glad it's not just Subaru either really mad or really sad. He's putting on what he used to put on, that kind of like goofy face, his more cliche moments, because that's who he wants to be, and even though he is hurting, he's trying his best to continue. The main difference between this version of Subaru and the one that we saw before REM really kind of gave him the pep talk is that he's not alone in this situation, that he has a save point that actually kept Amelia alive and well in his heart, and she actually cared for him, so it doesn't feel as tragic as it needs to be. It's still horrifying, but it doesn't feel hopeless, and that's a really refreshing feeling, and once again shows why Re:Zero's suffering mechanics aren't just there for shock factor or edge factor, but rather, when it's shocking, when it's disturbing, it needs to be, and it doesn't just keep beating you over the head with despair, but rather it says, hey, yeah, he's gonna suffer, and he's probably gonna suffer a lot with the whole Sanctuary storyline, but at the same time, at the very least, when we reset, we can at least come back to Amelia, and she still recognizes him and actually cares for him. And the flirtatious nature and banter and things like that, it felt good to know, should Subaru lose his head in this episode or next episode, at the very least, we can revert back and know that this relationship will remain alive and well. And that's something we haven't been able to say until this point, because every time he's died, it feels like we only slightly progressed to a more natural relationship, but now it's actually formed and it actually gives us a bit of a safety blanket while still knowing there's still so much suffering left to come back. And that's something that I think Re:Zero has proven a really solid thing with season 2 over these past 2 episodes, is that even if the whole Amelia and Subaru relationship has been saved at this point in time, there's still a lot of stuff he has to deal with, and it's going to be probably even more painful, especially knowing that we have characters like Beatrice popping up saying, hey, I know the person who pretty much you killed, why the hell did you kill him? It seems like she was mad at that. I mean, she threw him out and wouldn't let him back into the library after that, in some comedic fashion with Otto getting slammed into the wall. It was still a pretty brutal scene because it made it feel like the person that Subaru killed, like she was mad about, but the person that we saw was a pretty shitty person, at least from our point of view. There's so much uncertainty, and I like that about this episode, is that rather than just killing or resetting, what they did was they gave us questions that seem small, but honestly, the more we get, the more uncertain and anxious we become. We have the uncertainty of Roswell and Ram. Where did they go? Why did they bring in a new maid who was an old maid, but then maybe got fired or quit? We don't really know. And why was it that she has a letter that was basically designed to send them to the sanctuary and now it's all on them? I don't trust a single character in this show, if I'm being 100% honest. I feel like everyone could be a betrayer at some point in time, whether willingly or unwillingly. There's magic in this world, so there's always brainwashing possibilities. There's a lot we don't know, and then you have the whole idea that you end the episode with basically Subaru trying to protect Amelia, potentially hurting Amelia in the process, and then basically being summoned to talk with the witch agreed, and you're just like, god damn. And if I'm not mistaken, the very first preview for season 2 was basically him being summoned into this beautiful field, and you just see someone who looks like Satalia, looks like Amelia, and it's just like, oh my god, things are getting serious. I think Re:Zero knows that it can't just do the same things time and time again, and season 1 definitely proved that. But I think with second seasons, you have a bit more to prove, especially if there's been a large gap, because most people are going to rewatch the show, because it's not like it came a year after, so some people are like, oh, I remember, I don't need to do a rewatch. Most people are going to. That's why they made the director's cut and added in a couple of extra scenes and extra bonus here and there. So the fact that it doesn't just feel like, oh, it's okay, Subaru's gonna die, we're gonna have to rebuild the relationship with Amelia. No, it's like, hey, we've already done that. Now let's put the focus on just all the crazy political shit going on, the fact that so many people have lost their memories, some are in a comatose state where no one remembers them. It really shows to me that this season isn't a one-trick pony, and I know a lot of people are going to say, why would you think ReZero could be a one-trick pony? ReZero is amazing, a lot of people consider it a masterpiece, but it doesn't matter. There's a lot of good shows that you feel like they're going to have a slam dunk second season, and almost right away it just feels like they're rehashing the same ideas as if the author or the studio just kind of ran out of gimmicks that they could roll with. But ReZero feels like it probably has another 100 episodes worth of unique ideas before it could even potentially grow stale, and maybe that's a bold claim to some, and maybe to others they're saying, yeah, that's exactly how I feel reading the novels and things like that, but it just feels like it knows exactly what it's doing. And the fact that I can feel as excited watching an episode of mostly dialogue as I did when they drop Who's Rem and just all the uncertainty that happened with last week, or just the conclusion of season 1 and the action-packedness that it did have, it shows to me, and I think it probably shows to most people watching ReZero, that we are in for one of the best anime of this year, and I can't wait to see more. I think it really did sell itself. I think episode 1 probably sold it to most people, but for me, seeing these two episodes, seeing the lows and then seeing the potentially highs, but then with the dialogue and things like that, bringing up questions that are going to be relevant for probably the entire core, it really does prove that ReZero knows exactly what it's doing, has a structure, has a plan, it has an objective, and it's going to bring us a lot of questions that we don't know the answers to. ReZero is honestly a masterpiece in my mind. Some people will say, oh, it's just good, or you're overhyping it. I've always thought ReZero was amazing because rather than just saying, oh, we have a mechanic that can suffer and just hurt our main character, rather it says, hey, sometimes the worst things are you get locked into something and you don't get a reset for a long periods of time, and the uncertainty of knowing that should you just reset or should you just kind of push through. Like, Subaru's built a lot of good connections, but seemingly his connection with Beatrice is very shaky right now. They are both stubborn, as it is mentioned, but still, it hurts because you don't really know. Can you trust her? Can you not trust her? Did we ruin something? Did we potentially progress to a better thing? We don't know where the hell Roswell are. We don't know where Ram is, how Ram's gonna take knowing that she has a sister. There is so much pain that is just waiting to just slap us in the face, and that's why ReZero is amazing. It's world's interesting, you got this whole election business, you got the whole witches cult, like what the hell is a witch factor? Like, was he supposed to get the witch factor? Is that why you killed these people? You don't know. Why the hell is Puck gone? Why is all these things happening? There is basically a million questions for one answer. I'm exaggerating, I'm not going to say that. It's really like 6 or 7 questions, but still, it feels like it's trying to overwhelm us, and most of these questions aren't really that anxious by themselves, but stacked together, it creates anxiety that's just as insane as Who's Rem, and not many authors can get that right, but you gotta give credit to the ReZero's author, because holy shit are they hitting it out of the park. And I can understand why a lot of novel readers are like, oh, season 2 is going to be even better than season 1, because there's so many things that are going to happen and it's just going to blow us away. And I'm like, I mean, ReZero season 1 already did blow me away, but as they're progressing, and I mean, the way they're dropping cliffhangers at the end of the episodes, I get it. I feel like we're going to see some craziness, and I'm really excited to see the Sanctuary, especially with why there's a character we really need to focus on the name, make sure we don't piss him off or something like that. I think it's really cute how actually Amelia is flirtatious with Subaru at this point because there is a save and a lock now. So I think there's a lot of potential to kind of de-escalate, but then really escalate and just make us anxious, and I think we're going to see probably even more insanity than we did in season 1. That's saying something. Though I will say the opening and just like the ending songs and just the OST in general definitely have not lost their touch. ReZero has always been known for its greatness in the sound department, and it feels just as anxious as it ever did, and I'm really interested because I feel like the big shocking moments in season 1 is like Rem Twister edition, or just some of like the whale content, things like that. There's some pretty brutal moments and the sound effects really went in. And now that we're heading into such uncertain territory, the fact that we're going to have tea with the Witch Agreed, or potentially have tea, maybe he'll just stand up, and then you have the Sanctuary business. I think there's a lot of room to really make us feel like it's a horror anime with the sound directing, at least based in comparing to how season 1 handled its OST directing and just its sound effect placements. I mean, that whole witches kind of like It's such a creepy sound effect that just really just sells the whole witch atmosphere. I'm just excited because ReZero isn't a horror anime by any definition, but there's moments that it makes you feel like it, and I think based on what they've been setting up with this season so far, I feel like it's gonna make us shit our pants harder than we ever have watching the show, and I think a lot of novel readers are probably gonna really enjoy it. I've already seen a lot of novel readers say, oh, it's one thing to read it, but it's just something to see it, to have the voice acting, to have the visuals backing it, because based on what people have been saying, it's a really solid adaptation, so I hope they continue to hit it out of the park, because goddamn ReZero, it just is such a good show, and I want it to continue to be the masterpiece that I think it can be, and just go out with a bang. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. What did you think of a slower pace but still very anxious-filled episode of ReZero Season 2? Whatever you feel, do let me know. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like to show your support, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.